Welcome back to another episode of Unveiled Past Podcast. It's your guy Beezus here with my guy
D-Will.
D-Will. He never does it with any energy or
I never do it with
He's
any
just
energy.
like
D-Will.
D-Will.
What up?
Who we got today, D-Will?
We got my longtime friend and cousin,
I was gonna
most favorite
say,
cousin.
Uh-oh.
Longtime friend. That's what you lead with.
Jessica.
I didn't know she was a cousin.
Family?
That's cool.
She's family.
I don't know.
Okay, so this one just got a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Might be related.
I got to get her all riled up. That way we can get...
See, keep the rowdness on that side of the studio.
Yeah.
And then we'll just be normal over here, and I'm just gonna
There you
watch.
go.
I might pop out some popcorn out of my backpack and just start watching the fireworks.
I'm
Let's
here for
go.
the entertainment.
Oh yeah, as am I.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it, Jess. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Bell City,
Bell City.
big old town of Bell City.
A good five
So,
people there.
Yeah. We pretty much make up the whole town, my family. I was born in Cape. I have one brother that we share the same parents, and then 4 that do not share the same parents. So we're one of 6 total.
Okay.
My parents split when I was little, so I don't even remember my mom and dad being together.
How little were you?
I was a baby.
Baby.
So yeah,
You had no concept of
no,
them together, their relationship.
never. And honestly, I talk about it a lot, and I'm like, if I saw my parents as a couple, I would probably throw up. Like, I don't. No, it's just weird to me. So my parents split, and then my dad met my stepmom. She's an angel of a human. No one deserves her.
Yeah.
She's great. I was a terrible child to her specifically. But yeah, so she had 2 kids. My dad had me and my brother, and then they had 2 kids together. So we are the Brady Bunch.
So all the siblings pretty close?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
absolutely. And we're really close together in age, too. So the 4 older ones are right there together, and then the 2 younger ones, my little brother is 11 years younger than me. So
That's
and
age
then-
gap.
Yeah. But when he was born, it was like I was like, this is my child. You know, my stepmom used to tell everybody that I used to say that he was my baby.
Yeah.
You know, and he was. So, but yeah, so that's my family, and my childhood was entertaining, to say the least. My dad did some time in prison.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was into drugs. He'll tell you to this day he's a terrible drug dealer because he just did all the drugs instead of selling them.
It's like a
So-
typical movie scene right there.
Yeah.
It's like, you're supposed to be selling that, right? Like, yeah, dog.
Yeah,
I'm gonna sell
no.
it.
Yeah.
Dad was like, nah, I'd just rather do it. So, you know, he had a rough childhood himself. So he kind of turned the wrong direction, I would say. And my mom, same thing. I just didn't know that until later in life.
Yeah.
You know, she portrayed this innocent little sweetheart when she wasn't so innocent. So, yeah, it was crazy. When I was little, my dad, because he was in prison, we didn't see him very often, even when he got out. My mom wouldn't let us, or it was...
Kind of like an alienated situation.
Kinda,
due
yeah.
to what he was dealing with.
He would try to see us, and then my mom would keep us from him, or, you know, there was just so much going on then.
How do you think that really affected your childhood with him being in prison?
Oh, I
and not
hated my
around?
dad. I was so mad at him. I absolutely hated my dad, and that's part of the reason why I was the way I was to my stepmom, because when my dad got out of prison, you know, he went and he had this new family, and
Felt replaced.
I did. I felt like I wasn't good enough for him to be a part of my family or to want to be a parent to me. But a lot of that was being fed to me by people in my family. So, you know, I love my mother and I love my grandparents, but they talk so much shit on my dad, and they would feed that to me and be like, well, you know, your dad doesn't want to come see you this weekend, or, you know, things like that. So I'm essentially being brainwashed at this point. And which fueled my hatred for my dad. And so when I was younger, I was just an asshole to my dad and my stepmom. You know, my favorite line, and we talk about this all the time with her, but my favorite line was, "Oh, you're not my mom." You know, and like, I can't imagine somebody saying that to me as a mother.
Especially
like,
when you're trying to take care of that child.
correct.
You're trying to love them.
She has literally from day one, this woman has done nothing but mother me. Like, she has been a motherly figure in my life from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm over here being an asshole to this woman because I was just upset. And I had this image in my head of her and my dad. And that's just what I stuck with. And it took me until well into my 20s to realize that, you know, things weren't really what they were.
Yeah.
You know, I was fed a lot of lies as a child.
You
so
probably didn't even really realize that you were being fed lies. You just thought it was the truth, the
No.
norm, like the life that you were living. Like,
I know I didn't.
mean, that's right. You know, as a kid, like you don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to really tell, and at that point, you haven't grasped enough of like what manipulation and any of that stuff really is.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy looking back on it, and just I can remember bits and pieces, and you know, and again, I love my parents. I love my mom. I love my dad, but neither one of my parents were perfect.
Right.
You know, they both did their bad things, and it affected me and my brother. All of us. It affected us pretty deeply. So, but my dad he's been nothing but open and honest about his past, his traumas, all of everything that's affected him, everything that he's done that's bad.
That's good.
You know, we've come a long way with our relationship, I will say, because it was up until my 20s, I was very angry. Oh my gosh, I was so mad. But it changed, and we have a great relationship. And I tell him all the time, you know, I'm so grateful for that relationship now because where I missed him as a dad, I get to watch him be a grandpa.
Yeah.
And that's more than what I could have ever asked for.
Right.
And he's the best. I mean, he really is. He's this big, burly, tattooed, prison-tatted guy, but he's a teddy bear.
Yeah.
You know, he looks scary, but he's really just such a big sweetheart.
How long was he in prison for?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. I want to say he was in around 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, and we got to go see him once when he was
Wow.
in there.
Man.
Yeah. And he was in Arkansas, so he wasn't far,
No.
but I was only
Couple
able to
hours
go
down the
see
road.
him once. Yeah,
That's crazy.
it was wild. It is crazy. And then after that, he had gotten out, and then he lived in Bernie for a little bit, and they've lived all over the place. Dexter, Bernie.
Small town USA, baby.
Oh, my gosh. All the places. So, but yeah.
So how has the relationship transpired from all the resentment and hate towards them to now you guys are pretty close?
It took a lot of me being an asshole and him being an asshole back to me for us to kind of come to a head and have that conversation. And we had a lot of hard conversations. I will forever remember those conversations, and you know, and even through all of that, I have to say my dad was so good at only speaking of his, you know, his faults. He never badmouthed my mom, not once. He never said anything negative about her. You know, he just owned up to his shit and apologized. And it took all of that and me to finally open up and let him, you know, say his piece. And it just kind of built our relationship from there.
That's a lot for him to do too, because like think about the mindset, him being locked away for
I know.
that amount of time, not being able to see his kids, not being able to live a life, and to be able to come to terms with being like, no, I made mistakes, I did this, and then to be able to own up to his daughter, and
Correct.
That's a lot.
Meanwhile, like not even knowing if he's even going to have the chance to be
that.
with his daughter because of all the manipulation tactics outside.
Yeah. Well, and not just with me. I think about that a lot too because, like I said, he had a horrible childhood. His childhood was not great, and I won't speak on it because I don't have his permission to speak on it, but it was bad. And for him to go from that to messing up over and over and over again, getting in trouble, and then now you have these torn relationships with your kids, your wife, like she stood by him that whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, through all of it.
Were they married before he went to prison?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So he actually went to prison. They had gone to the hospital. She was pregnant with my sister, Kaylee, and they had gone to the hospital to be induced with Kaylee, and he actually got arrested at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So the doctors wouldn't let her have her then, so then she had to wait again. So he missed her birth.
Yeah.
Because they arrested him and he was gone. So
Damn.
he didn't even get to see her.
Mm.
Ooh, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he told us that he was in the room and they were just kind of waiting, getting everything started, about to induce my stepmom. And a nurse had come in and asked him to step out, and he stepped out in the hallway and got tackled.
3 cops just waiting on
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shut up.
That's wild.
Isn't that nuts?
That is nuts.
I was like, that's crazy. That nurse honestly should probably lose her job. Like, you're interfering with, your job is to take care of that patient, not
Assisting an arrest.
correct. Yeah. Like, what are you doing?
Like, hold on, Susan. Let me go.
Yeah.
I gotta go call the police real quick. Can you do that IV for me?
You know
Like-
for a fact she wanted to do that. She was just
yeah.
like, let me be the one.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to go tell him.
That made her day.
It did. Absolutely.
Damn, though.
Yeah.
She, yeah. So, but that, I mean,
That's wild.
it is crazy. And then he didn't get to see her for a while after that. I mean, he had gone to prison, and then, my stepmom had taken Kaylee up there, and he finally got to meet her. But still, nobody wants to meet their kid while they're in
Newborn
prison.
child.
Right.
Behind, that's not even.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely
have
not.
you, I know you can't speak on your siblings, but have you noticed how his arrest has affected them too?
There's a clear difference in the way that Josh and I grew up, my oldest brother, and how my other siblings grew up. All of us have different pasts, right? Like, Josh and I have a lot of similar trauma, from us being kids. And the way that I will say for Kaylee and Ryan, they had a great childhood, and Kaylee will even tell you that. Like, they did. I mean, they had their mom and their dad, and was it perfect? No. Nobody's life is perfect, but they did have a really good childhood because my dad, he straightened up a lot after Kaylee was born and after he had gotten out of prison. And so he changed his life completely. Yeah. I mean, he's been sober since before Kaylee was born. And, that's 27 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about, because you've got people out here who can't stay sober for 27 days.
Yeah.
You can get to being sober.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I'm so proud of him and in awe of that. But, their childhood was great, and they don't really have the types of traumas that the rest of us have. Emily and Dylan, which are those were Julie's kids before she had met my dad, they have some similar background as me and Josh. And so they came into that with their own traumas. But my dad took them in and was like, you're my kids. And they call him dad. I mean, they have always called him dad. Their own father isn't in the picture and hasn't been in the picture their whole lives. Or up until Julie had left him. So, they've got some similar traumas, but I think because they had a stable home, it was just different for them.
Right.
Yep.
I really believe that even children within the same household grow up very differently.
Absolutely.
And what works for one child doesn't work for the other.
Oh, yeah.
And they could have a very similar upbringing, but, how they feel versus the other sibling is completely different. What they need is different.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I can tell you from my past, you know, my dad married my stepmom, you know, that after him and my mom split, and he moved out to like Arizona for a little bit with her and then came back. But while that's happening, my mom, deep within her addiction, you know, she was finding these terrible people, bringing around me and my brother. And we ended up living with a man for a few years. And that man, you know, molested me. I mean, it's just how it happened. Yeah. I mean, he was a horrible human being, beat my mother senseless. I mean, my brother and I watched, beat us. It just crazy. So, like, we had that going on, you know, at a very young age. I mean, I was my son's age. I was 5.
Yeah. Wow.
So
you didn't even really understand what was going on,
and
why you were being beat or why you were being touched.
Right. And it happened for years. It happened for a couple of years. And I remember one time, my brother and I shared a room. It was a pretty big room, so he had his side and I had my side. And the house that we were in, it was weird how it was set up. Like, there was our room, and then there was a hallway, which there was no door, but you just led out into the hallway. There was a bathroom in the hallway, and then it went straight into, like, the master bedroom. So it was, like, connected by that hallway, and there were no doors. Well, I can remember in my brother's bed, if you were to come out of my parents' room down the hallway, you'd see Josh's bed first. And I remember one night I threw up in my bed. I got sick. And I was terrified to tell my mom because I was like, I'm in trouble, you know. And so I didn't wake anybody up. And I just got up and I got in Josh's bed and laid with him. And the guy that my mom was with got up out of bed. I don't know why, but he saw me in Josh's bed, went absolutely ballistic, came in there and picked me up and threw me across the room into my bed and made me sleep in my puke.
Dude was unhinged.
Yeah.
He was on drugs. I mean, he was heavy on drugs. I mean, he was a horrible person.
Damn.
And, you know, those are just, and a lot of my childhood, like, I can remember that, but, like, I don't remember a ton of it. I mean, it was so traumatizing that I have completely put it into the back of my head. And I don't remember a lot. I just know that it was bad.
Yeah.
And
you're in that fight or flight mode right there.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
That's where I stay. It's my favorite place to be.
She said, we don't fly too often, dog.
Yeah, and then crazy after that, one thing I also remember is after, so it came to light finally that this happened. We went to court. We did all the things. You know, I had to be examined I think at this point I was like 7 or 8, you know, as a little girl. I had to have all these people look at me and take pictures and just the whole 9. So that was traumatizing.
Very.
But he ended up ratting some people out over drugs, and so he got out of it. He got probation, I think.
Should have hung him up by his toes, if you ask me.
Oh.
That's freaking wild.
My dad chased him out of Walmart. That happened. That did happen. So my dad, my dad didn't find out about it until we were going to court. So another thing that's crazy is my mom didn't even tell him.
To have the respect.
Yeah. So she didn't even tell my dad.
For you alone, if your father to tell him what was going on, like the severity of the situation. That's blown. Like I'm blown.
I know. And so my dad told me that they were at, I don't know, Walmart, which it doesn't matter where. Yeah. But they were at Walmart and he was checking out and they like locked eyes, and Dad was like, immediately knew who it was. And he said he dropped everything in his arms and booked it out the door.
All I'm thinking about is Kill Bill. Like,
yes.
They like that.
Dad hightails it. And Dad had just gotten out of prison at this point too, I think. So Dad like hightails it out out of Walmart to catch him. My stepmom's like, oh my God, like he's about to go back to prison for murder. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But he got away, and I really, truly do not know how, because my dad, I mean, he just saw red and he just took off. But like, how crazy to run into this man at Walmart.
Right.
And
small town USA.
Yeah. Let me tell you.
I'm going to see you somewhere. That's wild.
But if you think about it, though, what's crazy to me is my dad ran into him at Walmart. Like, what would stop me from running into this man? I was terrified after that. Yeah. I mean, this happened. We went to court. All this stuff happened. And my family just was like, we're not going to talk about it. We're just not going to. This didn't happen.
See,
we're just
dismissed it like it never happened.
I went to therapy for a year. My grandparents took us. But, like, outside of therapy, it was not discussed. You know, so I was
taking you to therapy was to dismiss it, though. That's
this
the thing.
man knew where I lived. He knew where I went to school. He knew everything about me, you know, and he ended up coming back to the house, and I didn't know it, but my mom let him stay in our attic, and he stayed there for a few months, and I was downstairs the whole time.
So, can I ask you, how's your relationship with your mother?
So
for real though.
Yeah. Well, okay. We
can backtrack a little bit if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay.
My relationship with my mom is, I would say it's good. I think it could be better. There's a lot. These conversations I have not had with my mother. We still don't talk about it. We don't talk about what happened. I've tried. She says she doesn't remember, and then she gets really flustered.
She gets shameful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I think my mom, you know, it was, not to make excuses, it was traumatic for her too. You know, she was in a very abusive relationship. She was terrified of this man. And if I had to guess, he probably threatened her, and that's why she let him come back, you know. And she was also not in her right state of mind. So there's a lot of contributing factors, I think, to it. But I also think that it's really difficult for my mother to have these conversations with me, because I can't imagine carrying that weight of knowing not only did I bring this person around my kids, but I'm the reason that my kids have these traumas. And that's a heavy thing to carry every day.
Real heavy.
You know?
Yeah.
Trying to make the right decision, but you're making the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And she had to get stuck in it and living in it.
I imagine that it is probably the hardest thing in the world for her to think about. And it doesn't excuse it. I deserve the conversation, you know?
Right.
And I know that. As an adult, I know that. I deserve that conversation. But I think about it as a mother, and, you know, your goal is to protect your children.
Yes.
Period. That's keep them alive, protect them at all costs. And she didn't do that. And I feel like I think that is a lot of her trauma as an adult.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree with you on that.
But I mean, I do. I talk to my mother. You know, I have a relationship with my mother, and she has a relationship with my kids. But I think that she also is struggling in her own way right now. Yeah. So my mom is married to his uncle.
Okay. Yes.
So that's how we became friends, I guess, because now we're not family. I don't know. No. I wasn't aware that we weren't related.
Yeah, dog, you fucked up.
I did. I know.
You fucked up.
Just saying.
I won't ever hear the end of that.
No.
Ever.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to like a family event and be like, "What's up, friends?"
Yeah.
She will.
It's fine.
She will. That's funny.
We'll hash that out later, but. But yeah, no, I think that our relationship would be a lot stronger if she would just let down the walls and open up and just have the conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable. I mean,
you might have to present it to her that way. Then.
Yeah.
You might have to actually, you know, let her know that you're coming from a place of love and you're wanting. I don't want to say closure, because that still makes it sound very serious, but like a place of love, you know,
Yeah.
a place of where you guys need to have clarity, I guess I
Right.
would say.
Right.
Well, if you ask Dustin, I'm the queen of closure. I want everyone to give me closure. I don't care who you are.
I'm starting to get these, I'm starting to get these senses from you.
Dustin's like, sometimes we just don't get the closure. And I'm like, but we do.
Yeah.
So
She is.
It's like,
I
I'm
hear
going to
you.
close this book
Yeah.
and I'm going to put it on the shelf.
Yep.
Don't care what you're talking about.
Yep.
Right.
We will get the closure. It might be 4 years from now, but we will get
She
it.
does. She does.
I
man.
try really hard. But yeah, it's crazy. My childhood was crazy. And all of that happening is the reason why I pick shitty men. Honestly, I mean, it's funny to say out loud, but it's true.
It's very true.
You know, I will say for the record, I don't have a shitty guy now,
Hey.
but it took me 33 freaking years to realize that, you know, and I guess we can dive into the part with my marriage.
Well, let's hang on to that for a moment.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how your childhood transpired and what it was like whenever your mom got with my uncle.
Oh, okay.
Let's go to
We
there,
can go there.
and then we can go into your marriage after that.
Yeah.
So wait, your mom's married to his uncle.
Yes.
At what age did y'all meet?
We're
13,
like, probably. I was gonna say like 11, 12.
maybe.
Did y'all hang out like a lot?
We
We
always
did.
So
Okay.
my uncle and my dad went in half and half on a spot down at Wapapello.
Okay.
And every weekend we would always go down there, go to the lake, ride on pontoons and jet skis and
Okay.
stuff like that.
Okay, so y'all actually have a relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dustin tried to kill me on a jet ski once, and I think that really
Save that for the end. I'll bring
it
that back. I'll
formed
bring
our
that
friendship.
back up. I'm going to bring that up at the end of this podcast. Stay tuned,
we,
guys.
we can talk about it. I'm still salty, but it's fine.
I like it.
15, 20 years later, she's still salty about it.
I'm really
It's like one of
salty.
those stories you bring up. You're like, you remember when you almost killed me on that jet ski? Like, how
Oh.
do you remember
We talk
that
about
shit?
it all the time.
She brings it up all the time.
I do.
She is still salty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I introduce Dustin to people, I'm like, this is Dustin. He almost killed me once.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about it because I know
Whenever
you're curious.
introduced her to my girl Abby, she was like, "Did he tell you about how you almost killed me on a jet ski?"
I needed to know that she knew that you once were crazy.
I was about to say it. At one point in your life, you were almost killing people. Like,
Yeah. Straight up murder
All right.
via jet ski.
So
Childhood life.
Yeah, well, okay. So when my
Your
mom
mom met
met Steve, my stepdad, I pretty much treated him how I treated my stepmom. I was an asshole. You know, I couldn't understand why I wasn't good enough to have my parents together. That was I blamed it on me just not being good enough. You know, I don't know how else to explain it. Like that's how I felt.
See, I'm on the outside looking in to this. Don't know if you watch my episodes. My parents have been together their entire life, my entire life. Why do you feel like why did you feel like it was your fault? Like, why did you feel like it was something you did that
I
made
think that it was because of my childhood and everything that had happened to me. Everything was always my fault. You know, I was made to believe that things were my fault. So going into my teenage years and even young adult, like anything, and I still do it to this day, where I have to catch myself and be like, this isn't something that you did wrong.
Yeah.
You know, because I've never had somebody literally look at me and say, hey, this isn't your fault
Yeah,
that this happened until I was an adult,
I got you.
you know?
I got you.
So I've always kind of shamed myself and made myself believe that all of these things were happening because of something I did.
did that stem from when your mom and father split? Do you think?
I think, well, because I don't know, I don't ever remember them being together. So I don't
Okay.
really know that had anything to do with it. I think a lot of it was when my mom got with that guy,
Yeah.
he was very much, I mean, I would get my ass beat and he'd be like, well, you shouldn't have done what you did, you know, or I would, anything
Right.
that would happen, it was always my fault.
When you were a little
The
girl,
assault,
too, and that's,
Yeah.
I mean,
you just
the
can't be a little girl like that.
things like that, it was always my fault, you know. If I had done something differently, this wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And that was just
If
burned.
you did something right, did you get gratification if you were doing something right? Did you get like congratulations or
No.
no?
No, there was never any praises for doing things right. It was always focus on the bad.
Yeah.
You know,
So that's probably what stemmed a lot of it right there. You never got the good. You just got all bad.
Yep.
So
Exactly. And I think so growing up and becoming a teenager and trying to figure out who I am as a person, and you know, you've got all of these new things. I mean, my stepmom had been there from day one, so I was used to her, you know, at that point. I was still an asshole, but I was at least used to her being there. But then, you know, my stepdad comes around and I'm like, what the fuck? Where do all these people keep coming from? Why are we doing this? No, and it took me a while to get used to him, and I think it helped because he was the fun parent, you know. He didn't have kids. He still doesn't have kids. He just has me and my brother, you know, and he was just wild and wanted to party all the time and do all the fun things, and that's what we did. I mean, we would literally be at the lake and all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, every summer I felt like we spent the summer there.
Yeah.
And we'd be at the lake and our parents would be trashed, and we're just over here kicking it, you know, 14, 15 years old, just
you're doing whatever.
hiking through the woods in the middle of the night for absolutely no reason because our parents are drunk and they said it was fine.
Just out, like they're off on because Wapapella has a couple islands. They'd be at the island there, and we would be clear across the entire side of the other lake.
Yeah, take off on a jet ski. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
just over here partying, getting wasted, and we're just like, all right, we're gonna go across the lake. See ya.
Yeah.
Like we had the freedom. We had the freedom, but we didn't have the freedom.
Right.
You know. So, but I eventually got to a point where I had a good relationship with him, and I think it's okay now. We had a big falling out a couple years ago, because I don't know if you've noticed this about me, but I talk a lot of shit, and I don't really. As a parent, you want to have your children to have a different childhood than you had, regardless of whether it was good or bad. You want better for your kids, no matter what. Well, one of those things is I was really big on not fighting in front of my kids because that's all I ever saw growing up. I mean, you know that. Like, you experienced the same thing. It was just chaos. So I just am really big on that. And my stepdad and my mom got into a fight once, and I forgot what he said to her. Do you remember this story?
I can't remember. I remember you telling me about it, but I don't remember.
He said something
what
like
was said.
"fuck you" or something to my mom, and that's all it takes for me. And I flipped around and I said, "What the fuck did you just say?"
Yeah.
And it just went from there. And we were screaming at each other, and
You
so
chiming in made it worse. And
yeah. Well, and he talks a big game. He does. Talks a big game, and he thinks that, you know, he's all talk. That's what it is.
Big bark, little bite.
Yeah, exactly. He ain't going to do nothing. He's a little guy. He still has a mullet, okay?
Yeah.
So
he's always been rocking a mullet, dude.
He's just a little guy.
Party in the front. Or business in the front, party in the back, dog.
I'm through, dog. I'm done. The thing she said, he still has a mullet. Like, he rocking the same one from 1988.
He
dog.
is. I'm
He's
not
probably
even
been rocking
kidding.
it
I'm
since
not joking.
He was born, probably.
Yes.
I am through. Oh my God.
I
No,
have
it is the
never
same
not
one.
known that man to not have a mullet.
Yeah, him and my mom would go to Jamaica for their anniversary every year.
He goes with a mullet.
He would go with the mullet, and he'd come back, and he'd have the Jamaican ladies braid it and put beads in it. And he'd come back, and he would just be like, you know, swaying it. And I'm like, God, please don't.
All right, talk to the people out of the world. Let's make braided mullets a freaking hashtag or something.
No.
I don't know what to do with
No.
that. That's amazing.
Braided
I was
mullets.
like, please don't show up to any of my school events with those beads in your hair. Like, he would... just hearing them clank through the house, you know, like
They're just
yeah. What are you doing? Please stop.
hot. I just got hot. That's wild.
But
Oh
yeah,
my
the
goodness.
mullet is still going strong, unfortunately.
I'm just picturing like Joe Dirt with like
Yeah, that's dark
beads
hair.
coming down on the back.
A brunette Joe Dirt.
With like
Yes.
some pit vipers.
He's not wrong about that at all.
No.
Pit vipers, though.
Yeah.
I'm through.
Some whisker do's and whisker don'ts.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm watching that movie today. I'm watching both of them, the first one and the second one tonight. I promise you. I'm literally crying right now. Oh my God.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's a character.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Oh my God.
I will say my relationship with him now is decent. It's better. We finally started talking to each other again. So I wasn't talking to him for a long time. But I also wasn't going to be the one to apologize.
Right.
You know, talk to my mom like that in front of my kids and expect me not to say nothing.
Yeah, especially in front of the kids. You gotta respect your woman.
Yeah.
That's my brother. I tackled him in front of all my kids too for mouthing. I have an attitude problem.
She's a little
You
feisty.
said tackle. Like,
I did.
you didn't say
Well-
like reprimand. You didn't say I'm gonna speak up. Like I'm a tackle.
He came in with an attitude and was yelling at his wife, and I stayed out of it because I'm like, not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm not jumping in. And then he kept going, and I was like, you need to stop. And then he started mouthing me, and I said, all right, here we go. So I stood up, and he came over there, and he's very, like, he's an old man, like, at heart.
Yeah.
I think he is an old man in a 35-year-old's body. And he came over, and he started waving his finger in my face. And I said, you're going to get your finger out of my face. And he wouldn't. And so I just full force tackled him, and he fell like a sack of potatoes. And then I tried to hit him, and he caught me, and we fell to the ground, and he just laid on top of me, and he's like, are you done? Are you done? And I'm like,
Telltale sign that he didn't want to get his ass beat.
right. If I had an arm loose, I would have elbowed him or something. But he had me like bear hugged on the floor.
Yes, Jessica is muy caliente.
Yeah.
Very spicy.
Yeah, I am.
Very spicy.
Yeah, I have a problem. It's my dad. I am my father's child, 1,000%. It's bad. I drive like him. I talk like him. I have the attitude. It's bad. You know, on Life 360, we have it with my whole family. I didn't know if you know this, but
I don't.
So speaking of driving like my dad, Jason, which we'll get into in a little bit, we'll talk about Jason, but he was looking at Life 360 one day to see where I was because I was coming to his house, and he called me and he's like, do you know that your little person on Life 360 is in our race car right now? And I said, what? He's like, it has flames coming out of the back. It thinks that you are racing.
They had to animate your emotion. They had to animate you driving that fast. They had to animate your shit.
Damn.
That's
I was
fucking
like,
wild.
I'm not going that fast.
Like, I'm
And
only
he's
going
like,
95.
slow down. It's like, what do you mean? I brought that up to my stepmom because we all have Life 360 on each other. And she's just like, oh, I get driving alerts on you all the time. Like,
What insurance?
driving hazard, Jessica. Jessica has a driving hazard. Paul has a driving hazard. I'm like,
What
Yeah.
insurance company do you have?
hey, I've only had one speeding ticket, and that's only because they trapped me.
Do you have Progressive?
I do.
You don't have the snapshot?
Maybe.
Her
don't
bill
got
would be high as you had
Yeah,
Snapchat.
so I'm like, you ain't gonna get no tips.
I don't think I have Snapshot because I don't want my bill to be any higher. But
Yeah.
yes, I do.
They would get you.
I go fast.
Hey,
There's like a comfort. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a certain speed where you're just like, this is it right here.
I think
Mine is 85. I cannot
That's
help
what
it.
people who speed say. That is literally what people when people speed and they're so used to it.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, 70 ain't nothing, dog. Like,
Well,
like
I-
you look
I
over there
do
going like
think-
85, 90.
Yeah. I do think, though, a lot of it has to do. I don't think you were that bad before you lived in St. Louis.
Oh yeah, living in St. Louis
Living in the city will
changed
do
my
it.
life.
Yeah, because I was the
Yeah.
same way whenever I lived down in Nashville. It was like speed limit, and then all these cars were just zoom, 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 zoom. And I'm like,
Yeah,
well, I'm
That's
going to
how
get
it
run
is.
over. So I might
That's
as well
how it is. You gotta keep up. You
St.
gotta keep
Louis
up.
is a dangerous place to drive.
St. Louis, Memphis, Nashville's not that bad, but it's a little crazy.
yeah.
In Atlanta. Those are the
Atlanta's the
three
worst.
worst.
Yeah.
that I've even driven in New York and I hated that shit.
Yeah.
But like, no. Freaking St. Louis and Memphis,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, it's bad. And it did. Yeah, it changed my driving habits for sure. That's where I got my ticket, ironically.
Yeah.
You get pulled over in St. Louis.
I told you I got trapped. There were like
Oh, yeah.
5 cop cars sitting on an exit ramp, and then there was somebody clocking on the overpass. And I was late to get Ashlyn from school. I was on the interstate, and I was in a construction zone. So they got me. I don't know what else to say.
They got me.
They got me.
I rolled down the window, and the guy just looked at me, and he was just like, and I said, I know.
It's like, give me my shit.
Yeah.
Just give
I'm
it
like,
here.
can
I
you
know.
just hurry? I'm late. I got to go get my child. So, yeah, I was doing
I've been getting speeding tickets since I was like 18. It's all right. It's
I
no
was
big
doing
deal.
82 in a construction
Ain't
zone.
nothing.
And that's what
Ain't
I said.
nothing.
I
That
said,
ain't nothing, for real.
I was like, there are so many people
Yeah, but typically
flying around me.
construction zones are 60 mile an hour, and then it's
I was-
doubled in there.
I was going like 98
Yeah.
in the school zone, dog.
Yeah.
That ain't nothing.
My fine was like
500.
$600
Yeah.
bucks. The lady called me from the I guess the prosecuting attorney. I don't know, whoever. I've never gotten a ticket. So this lady calls me and she's just like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you knew about your court date and all that. And I was like, do I have to go? Like, she goes, well, if you want to fight it, yeah, for sure. And she goes, but I wouldn't do that.
You end up going to jail.
She goes, you could just come up here and pay it and be done. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
That man's
Yeah, I
like,
wouldn't
oh,
do
you were
that.
going how fast? Bailiff, go ahead and
She's
get
like,
her.
let me look at your ticket. She goes, yeah, I wouldn't fight that. I said, I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, I didn't plan on
I'm a
it.
pretty honest person. So,
Not today.
yeah. It's pretty
That's
bad.
funny.
We lost track there. Sorry.
It's all right.
That's good. We went
Told
off
you
on
I
a
w-
little tangent.
I went on a rant.
We love tangents. I'm
you
just
know,
here,
Yeah.
tangent
so-
himself.
We got into the lake and uncle and you guys having your relationship and stuff,
Yeah.
and then we can go from there.
Yeah. So when I graduated high school, I went to SEMO for a little bit. I was pretty tame in high school, believe it or not. I mean, aside from my attitude, like I didn't do the partying. I didn't do all of I did do sports. I cheered a lot, and then I played volleyball for a couple years, which was fun. But other than that, like I was pretty under the radar, I think, in high school.
Not a lot of friends, nothing.
Yeah. I still talk to a lot of my lifelong friends that like my friend Jackie, she's been my friend since we were like 3, something like that. I still talk to her.
She always came to the lake too.
Yeah, she was always with me at the lake. Always. So many crazy stories at the lake.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when I graduated and I went to SEMO, I don't know, I just kind of hit a wild spree, and I was like, this is great. I don't have a curfew. I don't have all these things, and I went a little crazy and partied and didn't go to class.
Think
So-
that freedom kind of opened you up a little bit to be more worldly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I learned some hard lessons there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, college just didn't click with me. I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to like it. It was very different. Well, and you have to think I also went from Bell City graduating class of 29
Yeah.
to SEMO. That was like a
Huge.
huge culture shock to me.
Yeah.
Even though I, have been to Cape and all the things, like Cape was the big city to us.
Different when you're
So-
immersed in
Yeah.
thousands of people in one class. And
It
I'm
was
sure your class at SEMO, just your class, was bigger than everybody in
like
Bell
an
City.
actual
Yeah,
classroom.
the-
Oh, yeah.
the
29
campus
people in
is
class.
bigger than my town.
Right.
No, for real.
It was
Dude,
culture
think about that.
shock.
You said it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah. So it didn't work well with me, but I ended up meeting a guy, and his name's Ryan. He's a great guy. But he was from St. Louis, and so we had talked about moving back up there, and I was like, well, I want to go with you, and so I moved to St. Louis, and I stayed, and him and I didn't work out.
Did you drop out and then move?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
So I dropped out of college and I moved to St. Louis, and I was working through college at the mall here in Cape. And so I just transferred to one of those stores in St. Louis,
Gotcha.
kept that job, and, him and I didn't end up working out. So but I just stayed because I had made friends up there and I knew people at that point. And then that's when I met Tommy, which is my ex-husband. And downhill we went.
Dun, dun, dun.